Hello everyone, my name is Rochelle Innocent and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Purpose. Welcome to our channel. Our community is focused on fostering the intellectual and character development in children. We do this through our parent-child workshops that are focused on 4 themes: autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept in order to cultivate grit, perseverance, and resilience in each child. And we are very thrilled to be offering one of the first of its kind digital, virtual, and continuous learning environments, enabling parents and children to connect from all around the world. At Project Purpose, our overarching mandate is to renew and rebuild family, community, and relationships. Our different social media platforms provide us with an opportunity to have discussions on all topics that relate to family, community, and relationships with ourselves as well as with others, with a primary focus on mental health and education. More precisely, the ways that the institutions of mental health and education play a role and have played a role in our societies at large. These discussions and debates provide us with an opportunity to think critically about what needs to change within these structures for us to live up to our bold slogan: support, protect, and empower each child through youth-focused development, better known as leadership in juvenescence. We recognize that in valuing our children's leadership potential, this also translates as recreating and co-creating environments both socially and politically that will enable our children to thrive. For those of you who are particularly keen on the topic, we also write thought pieces every other Sunday, and we actually just dropped the thought piece this past Sunday. So definitely be sure to meander over to the website and check out our online content. If it is the case that you are looking for a listening alternative, well, we're available on 10 different podcast platforms for your listening leisure, and we provided you with access to the link in the descriptions down below. Now, as is the convention, be sure to subscribe, hit that post notification bell so that you are aware of every time we post. And of course, if you like our conversations and you want to keep them going, like, comment, and share this segment. Let's get into it. Allô les meufs et les mecs. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And today our topic of discussion is mental wellness. And on the topic of mental wellness, we're going to give you some unconventional behaviors that lead to creating more room for happiness in your life. So we're going to actually carve this out into a 2-part series. I'll give you 3 in this first video, and I'll give you the next 3 in the subsequent video that is dropping this Thursday. I'm here to give you my own perspective on how to make room for happiness in your life. And they're unconventional because when we think about what behaviors lend to happiness, I very rarely have heard the advice that I'm about to mention, yet me following my own advice. And I'd like to say that I am fairly aligned in that I follow the advice that I give on my platform. This has lent to so much happiness in my life. Now, just before jumping into it, I should preface this by letting you know that by way of my personal beliefs in relation to happiness, happiness is something that can happen from an external event. Of course, we can be happy being in a specific situation or being involved with specific people, but happiness is something that we do for ourselves and that we can also bring about within ourselves. We can cultivate happiness on our own. It doesn't necessarily have to be circumstantial. And in fact, resilience is a byproduct of recognizing when happiness is supporting you through rough times. So sometimes we can be a little bit masochistic and we can pile on the coal. We're already going through a hard time and then we put ourselves in a mental state that really doesn't help us out of it. But we can also choose in hard times, in good times, in difficult times to have periods of happiness. I think happiness is a choice. Happiness is an internal state much more than it is something that is a byproduct of the things that happen in and around us. So wanted to give that preface, wanted to let you know that that's my perspective on things. And for me, it's something that I've really put into practice during the difficult times, the hard times that I've had in my life, the challenging times where I'm really pushing through even my own mental blocks on specific situations, just recognizing that happiness is always within reach if I recognize it is within me at all times to bring about, and to kind of relish in that state to help me reset, renew, and recharge. All of that to say, let me jump into my unconventional behaviors or attitudes that lend to happiness. And the first one, and we often discredit and we diminish the value of this first tidbit of advice that I want to give you, is solo time. And I am so big on this. It is so important to not just spend time alone, but to spend quality time with yourself. Learning to enjoy your own company is a huge precursor to cultivating inner happiness and to having happiness be part of your life. When you are comfortable with your own company, you become less comfortable being in the company of people who make you feel less than, right? And I think a lot of us, we make do and we make concessions for the company we keep because it's better than not having any company at all. And I think that if that is the attitude, if that is sort of the rationale that you're using to surround yourself with people who don't have the best intentions for you, who don't make you feel all that great about yourself because you'd rather just not be alone, I'm telling you, it's better to just develop the muscle and be alone and learn how to be alone. And the best way to do that is to take yourself out, get to know yourself, connect with yourself. It's just so important and it's so overlooked in our society. We're all about community, and I'm about community too, but I cannot be the best that I can be in a communal setting if I don't have my solo time. Like, I absolutely need my time alone, and I spend quality time alone. It's not just sitting in a corner wishing I was spending time with other people, which is not quality time. It's actually spending time in my own head, getting to know myself, getting to know my thoughts, doing individual activities and feeling good about it. And with that, you increase the standard, the benchmark by which, like, what kind of company you keep and what it is that you want to feel when you're in the company of others, helping you to siphon through and prune through the people who are just bad company. So that was my first tip on unconventional behaviors or different attitudes that we can engage in that will make room for happiness in our lives. And now the second one, and this one also is fairly taboo, especially in our society. We talk a lot about how to curb people pleasing, but a lot of how we are conditioned in our society, regardless of our gender, is to please others, is to live to the expectations of others. I am all about being accommodating from time to time, but consciously. So consciously making the choice to accommodate because it is a period or is a moment where, like, I feel inclined to do so. But I am also very comfortable at saying no. And this is another unconventional behavior and attitude around being able to decline and refuse without feeling guilt, without feeling uncomfortable, is being able to say no. Like, recognizing that your time is not anything that anyone should ever feel entitled to. And when you say no, that is it, right? There's no rationale or justification that you need to provide over and above the no. And if they're pushing for some sort of a reason, by all means give them one, but without the guilt and without the discomfort. We need to break away from this attitude, this mental block that saying no means that we're disagreeable human beings. I am comfortable saying no because I have this limited period of time on this earth to live out my life the way I would like to. And the best way that I can do that is to be very intentional about where my time goes. And I find that the biggest hurdle that I have recognized in others who want to be intentional, but they're also people pleasers, is that they feel really uncomfortable letting other people down. And I'm like, I mean, on the people-pleasing spectrum, if people-pleasing, that behavior is an extreme, I'm probably on the opposite extreme. Like, I need to make a habit, make a point of being cognizant of periods of time where I should probably think about accommodating someone else's desires and, you know, trying to meet someone halfway in specific areas. Not to say that I'm selfish or that I'm self-absorbed. I just really have no qualms about saying no when it's not something I care to do or want to do or have any desire to do. I am not someone who is driven at all by guilt. So, like, I think that sometimes I need to put myself in the mental frame that, like, sometimes I will say yes as an act of goodwill because I'm not dead set against what's being suggested. But, like, for me, like, my attitude is if I don't want to put my energy there, I'm just not going to. And if I have people around me who have an issue with the fact that I'm really very confident in setting boundaries, then I'm actually very comfortable cutting those people out. And that's because I don't want people around me who feel like they can control and manipulate my behavior by poking or creating a people-pleasing complex within me that I don't have and that I have no interest in cultivating. I don't like when people guilt me when I say no. I don't like when people try to manipulate a yes out of me. I like people to respect the boundaries that I set without me having to go through the rigmarole of explaining myself away. It's either I want to do it or I don't, and that's it, and that's all. And that has lent to so much happiness in my life because my time is going where I want it to go. My time is aligned with where I see myself going and growing in life. And I think that it's just so important that we recognize how much power and how much of a ripple effect is created when we develop the confidence and the comfort to say no in the face of those who are pressuring us to align our energy with their intentions or align our energy with their motivations when it's in misalignment with our own. So be very cognizant of that. Like, I think maybe 10%, 15% of the time I'm comfortable accommodating as an act of goodwill, but never will I bend for the sake of pleasing others, of satisfying an insecurity with myself that I need to please others and say yes. No, I think that that's not the place that anyone should ever say yes. If you ever say yes, it's because you're conscientiously choosing to accommodate that other person because you value that person and it's not that big of a sacrifice. But if you're doing it because you're anxious about letting someone down, that is a behavior you need to nix. And the sooner that you nix it, the sooner you make more space for happiness in your life. And the last one that I'm going to give you for this video, and definitely unexpected, is meditation. And no one would think, I even myself, when I started meditation, I was doing it because I'm actually naturally a fairly high-strung person. Like, I wake up like high energy, but in a way that could probably stress myself out if I didn't have different strategies in place to like level that energy out so that I could have access to that energy throughout the day. So because of that, I've incorporated meditation into my routine fairly early on in my adulthood because it helps me just be zen, if not calm. But I recognize also that one area that leads to a lot of happiness is being the master of my own thoughts and learning how to quiet the mental chatter. A lot of us don't like to spend time alone because we can't control the mental chatter. We don't know how to turn the volume down on the conversations that are happening in our head or in our dialogue that's bringing us into the future, so those anxiety-inducing conversations, or sending us in the past, making us, ruminate on things that like have already taken place. I mean, those situations are gone, but we're still ruminating. Then I think that we need to really become much more cognizant of the fact that it is for us throughout our lifetime to cultivate the muscle, the ability to quiet the mental chatter when it is not something that is serving us. And quieting the mental chatter is one thing, but also being able to control what channels that you're on. So because I've been a practitioner of meditation for almost a full decade, probably more than a decade, I started meditation as I started my professional life, and I did my first career role when I was 19. And I started meditation then because I felt like I was dealing with a lot of anxiety, even like as I broke into my career, because I was quite a bit younger than most of the people that I was working with. So like I learned first not to manage my mental chatter, to be the watcher of my thoughts and to decide, well, which thoughts I engage in and which thoughts that I don't, which really helps if you deal with a lot of intrusive thoughts. Then I learned to be the manager of my mental chatter. So it's like I can dictate, like, this channel, future forward, anxiety-inducing channel, we're not gonna go there. Ruminating of the past, we're not gonna go there. Like, my mental headspace is an area, is a haven. It has taken a lot of practice, a lot of discipline, a lot of meditation, sitting in silence, sitting in stillness. And I think being present is really having that silence internally, being able to give yourself mental quiet in those periods of meditation where your focus is really on what's happening within your body, your focus is on breathing, and your focus is on dialing down the noise. And sometimes your full meditation practice is just you working that muscle of dialing that noise down. But then you realize, like, between then and your next practice, that it's much easier to push away the intrusive thoughts or the negative thoughts or the anxious thoughts or the ruminations, because you're building that muscle bit by bit with every meditational practice. And so those are my first 3 tips on how to cultivate and create room for a happiness, and definitely unconventional. These are not tips that I've heard sort of marketed this way, but they've really lent to my own inner sense of happiness. And regardless of what it is that I'm going through, I think that happiness, again, is something that we can access regardless of our circumstance. So you don't have to be the best situation to feel happy. And I think that that's not a conversation that we have frequently enough. Like, I have gone through really tough times and still allowed myself periods of happiness because it gives me the mental fortitude to keep pushing forward. I mean, if in tough times we're depressed for the entire time, I mean, like, it's very hard to pull ourselves out of that. So I think it's important that we recognize what states we want to create as a toolkit to help us through difficult times, as well as, these states are great when they are natural, when they're happenstance, when, our circumstances bring about these states. But these are also states that are really good for us when we're going through difficult times as well. And I think that in a conversation on mental wellness, it's important for me to talk about the fact that happiness, it's a tool that we can access. It's an inner state that we can activate from within ourselves. In any case, that is the first of our 2-part series on unconventional behaviors and attitudes that lead to happiness. And I hope that was helpful to you, and I hope you put these 3 tips into practice. And if you're curious to know my next tips, well, definitely stay tuned for our Thursday's video. Now, before letting you go, I would be remiss if I didn't let you know that we will be going live at least twice a month, every month for the foreseeable future on our Facebook page. So definitely be sure to tune in. Now, these events are paid events, so if you do see yourself participating in our community on an ongoing basis, then I suggest you check out our package plans. Yes, we do offer package plans that give you access to not only an unlimited number of our live events, but also webinars and workshops focused on self-mastery over and above those live events. And if you're worried about the cost, don't worry, we've just incorporated Afterpay, which allows you to pay in 4 installments over a period of 6 weeks to make our programs much more accessible to you. And that's it for my announcements. Hopefully, if you're still here, you're subscribed, you are following us on all of our social media channels, you're really diving into the game changer mindset and being part of our game changing community. All of that to say, that's enough for today, and I look forward to chatting with all of you very soon.